How to apply the distributive property. If you don't know the answer to a positive number times a negative number, or what a negative number times a negative number is, I want you to review how to do it by clicking on this red button. Multiplying terms such as 3 and negative 2x, what you would do is simply multiply the numbers together. So I'd get negative 6x. Here I have x times 3. If you don't see a number with the variable, well, we know that if I look at this x, I see one x there. So it actually has a value of 1 if there's no number. And you could always add that if you want to. And the same idea as before, just multiply the two numbers together and you get 3x. The distributive property looks something like this. If you have three terms represented by a, b, and c, you simply multiply the a with the b and the a with the c and simplify it if you can. Similarly, if you have more than two terms inside the parentheses, you'd follow the same idea. So you'd have a times b, a times c, and a times d. And again, a, b, c, and d represent any terms you can think of. And then lastly, this is similar to the first situation where I have two terms on the inside, except that the outer term is on the right side. So over here, this is called left-hand distribution. This is called right-hand distribution. It's the same idea. So if you don't like this format, you could always rewrite it to look like this one. But the same idea applies. You'd multiply b with a and c with a. It just ends up being on the right side instead of the left side as we have over here. Let's look at a problem. Here it says use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. So what I'm going to do is multiply. And one thing I pay attention to avoid any confusion is the signs of each number. So here I have a negative 8 and this is a positive 2. And I can see it's a positive 2 because there's no minus sign in front of it. So what I do is I say, okay, negative 8 times positive 2. And then here I have a negative 8 and I'm multiplying that with a negative u. So negative 8 times negative u. And then here I have negative 8 times positive 4w. So negative 8 times positive 4w. And now in the next step, I'm just going to simplify. So negative times a positive, I get negative 16. A negative times a negative, I get positive 8u. And then a negative times a positive, I get a negative 32w. And we apply the distributive property. We don't have any parentheses anymore. And that would be my final answer. And the reason being is because none of these are like terms, so I cannot combine anything and I cannot do anything else. So my new answer is an expression still. Let's look at another problem. Here it says use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. So now I can see that I have a negative 2 on the right side of my parentheses. So this is the right-hand distributive property, meaning I'm just multiplying for a term, meaning I'm multiplying with a term on the right-hand side. So let's do that. I show 3 times negative 2. Then I have negative 5x times negative 2. And then I have a positive 3y times negative 2. In the next step, I'm just going to simplify. Positive times a negative, I get negative 6. Negative times a negative, I get a positive 10x. And then a positive times a negative, I get negative 6y. And I can see none of these are like terms, so that would be my final answer. I would get the expression negative 6 plus 10x minus 6y. Let's look at the last problem. Here it says to use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. And if you notice in this problem, there's no number to distribute, we just see a negative sign. So what you would do in this problem is simply make each term on the inside the opposite sign. So since this is a positive for you, then I know I'll be getting a negative for you. Since this is a negative 3y, I'll turn it into a positive 3y. Since this is a positive 5, I'll make it to a negative 5. And that's it. So my answer is a new expression, negative 4u plus 3y minus 5. If you liked the video, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.